Everyone is watching Bryan Harsin and the situation down at Auburn where he's still the coach as we sit here on Monday.
Well, Chris Lowe was the guy, along with several other really good ESPN reporters that had spoken with Harsin and reported on the story going into the weekend. He joins us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Good morning, Chris. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning. Good to be with you guys.
It's great to have you. We always appreciate your time. Did you think this is where we would be on Monday, that it seemed to have gotten a little quiet and Bryan Harsin is still the head coach at Auburn?
Are you talking about last Monday? Or?
No. I mean, did you think going into the weekend that when Monday rolled around, I should have said that better, Bryan Harsin would still be the head coach at Auburn?
I didn't know how long the thing would drag out. I didn't think it would drag out very long. And the fact that it just continues to sort of fester out there, I don't think it's good for anybody. Not good for Auburn's program, certainly not good for Bryan Harsin. When the president of the university comes out after the board meeting and says, hey, we're trying to separate fact from fiction, and says, quote, the appropriate decision will be made. Well, what's the decision? I mean, when did we get to the point where a decision needs to be made when a guy's only been there for 1 year? To me, that told me everything I needed to know. I mean, even after having talked to Bryan on, I guess, late Thursday night, people in his camp and other people there at Auburn, I didn't know how it would all play out, but certainly as I talked to people there, I still think it's going to be very, very difficult to bring him back under these circumstances with everything that's been out there. But it's Auburn. You guys have been around that program forever. Who knows?
Well, you've covered college football forever. Have you ever seen, especially with the timing of this, we're in the second week of February, have you ever seen another situation like this?
No, not like this, not with not with guys only been there for 1 year. But again, the complexities at a place like Auburn are unlike anything else in college football. There's a lot of programs out there who have a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. Certainly, Texas comes to mind. It used to be that way at Alabama before the guy that's there now got there, Nick Saban. But we could sit here and talk about a lot of the different situations, but nothing quite rises to the level of Auburn. We're different guys. You just sort of rise and fall in power. I'm talking about power brokers. At some point, this guy, another point, it's that guy. Go back to Gus's time. Well, some of those power brokers sort of lost that battle. The president, current AD Allen Greene, went out and made their own hires, brought in Bryan Harsin. I don't think anybody there that, sort of from the old guard was real thrilled about that. Well, now here we are. That hasn't worked out. Auburn lost a ton of football games down the stretch. There were complaints about all the coaches and players, about treatment of players. You've got somebody in the administration that's talking, interviewing these people, current and former, and you have the board of trustees meeting. Was that last Friday again?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's when President Hughes comes out and makes his comments. Oh, by the way, your head coach is on vacation. The vacation had been scheduled. So yeah, it's a mess. I mean, there's no other way to explain it than that. It's a big mess. And then you have a signing day where you don't sign anybody. I'm not. You asked me. I know I'm sort of being long-winded. No, I've never seen anything like this. But I'm not just completely surprised because of some of the complexities and dysfunctionality we've seen at Auburn over the last several decades. And yet, guys, people point to things there. I know it's frustrating for Auburn fans. There's so many fans that love that place, love that university. Throughout all this, look over the last 12 years. Auburn's won a national championship. They played for another one. They played for an SEC championship in 2017 when they beat Georgia and Alabama back-to-back. If they win that game in the SEC championship, they play potentially for another national championship. So it's not like it can't be done there. It's been proven in the last decade or so that you can win at a high level. So if Harsin does indeed not make it, I think there will be interest in this job because it's one of those jobs out there in college football that you look at and say, yes, even with all the outside noise and some of the things going on, you've got the resources, you've got the position, you've got a great fan base, you've got a history of winning. It can be done there at the highest level.
Chris Lowe is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Chris, I
I'm interested because you brought up Nick Saban, and Alabama was like that between Bear Bryant's retirement and the hiring of Nick Saban, and Mal Moore sort of stood as the firewall between the boosters and Nick Saban. Allen Greene hired Bryan Harsin, and he doesn't seem like he's the one that wants to fire him. What is the power of Allen Greene? What's the future of Allen Greene right now at Auburn, in your opinion?
No, I don't think Allen. Well, I think it's more, honestly, guys, more precisely, I don't think Allen is in the loop to fire. I don't think Allen's making that call or running his show. Nor do I think Allen's going to be there long term. He's been wanting the last year of his contract. I think he's got about 10 months left. He's been put in an impossible situation as well. Let's be honest. I mean, he's the guy that did hire Bryan Harsin, and now here we are a year later, and he's sort of out of the loop on sort of what's going on with the upper administration, trying to build a case or decide, or President Duge's word, separate facts from fiction on whether or not they want to keep their head football coach. Keep in mind, that statement didn't come from the athletic director. How many statements have you seen from Allen Greene? So that tells you right there that he's not in this loop. I think Allen is a smart enough guy that probably for the last 5, 6, 7 months, he's been looking to get out. In fact, I know there's been some jobs that he's been in line for or wanted to get that maybe just didn't work out. I don't think next year, whoever's the head football coach, that you'll see Allen Greene as the AD.
It may mean what I'm about, or may seem what I'm about to do is playing semantics. I'm really not. I just wonder how you would characterize the meeting that was reported by your team at ESPN there on Friday with Allen Greene and players. Do you know if, because I do think this matters, do you know if this was Allen Greene just being a good soldier and going in and talking to players? Was this players going to Allen Greene saying, hey, what's up? We got to stop this. Do you know the details of that meeting?
Well, no, I don't know the specific details. I think Allen has tried to be a good soldier with everything. I don't think Allen is working against anybody. He's certainly not working. I don't think he's working against Harsin or the establishment there. But it's just he's in that. Imagine being in his shoes right now. He's in a tough, almost impossible situation. I think the players. Clearly Bryan Harsin has support from some players on the team, and I think they're hearing all these things. They're reading them. These are on message boards, on talk radio, and they just said, listen, we want to talk to you about what's going on. We want to talk to you and say, this is what we want. This is why we think Bryan Harsin is or isn't our guy. And, just wanted to get in front of somebody of note. See, the other thing I think is interesting here, or people need to understand, is Bryan was frustrated before he left to go on vacation because he couldn't get any answers on what he could pay his assistant coaches, what the salary pool was. He's got an offensive coordinator he's got to hire. And it just basically was hang up after hang up. And he asked to meet with the board or have a board, a sit down with the board to sort of say, hey, what do we need to do to get this done? Because I need to hire an offensive coordinator, some more staff members, and was told by the president that that's not a good idea, that's probably not going to happen. And that was, I don't know, in the days leading up to his vacation. A vacation, I want to add, that was already scheduled. It wasn't like he just threw his hands up and said, I'm going on vacation. A lot of coaches go on vacation right after signing day. And so he left to go on vacation. So I think there was already a lot of frustration there that he could not get that done. And he talked to Allen Greene about it. I think he reached out to some board members on his own to try to find out, hey, what's the hang up here? What's the snag? And it wasn't giving a lot of answers. I think that in itself was a pretty red flag for a lot of people. But I still, in my conversation with Bryan the other night, don't think he felt like when he left that they were aligning to potentially fire him. He knew there were some issues. He knew there were some things on the board. There were a lot of things going on. The new president was getting ready to be named. I think they were finalizing Bruce's contract. So he knew there were some things out there. Did he have a great feeling about everything? No. But I also don't think he left to go on vacation thinking they were getting ready to fire him.
Well, if Auburn does go in that direction and they decide to part ways, and whether or not they pay him the $18.3 or they try to fire him with cause, either way, what direction do you think Auburn goes? Who would be the next head coach?
guys. Who wins the fight? Who wins the battle? You know, I mean, it's sort of where, you know, first of all, just how surreal is it that we're talking about Auburn, one of the great programs in all of college football, potentially having a third head coach in 3 years. I mean, just think about that. That blows me away. You know, I don't know. I think some of the same names the last time. There was a lot of support for Kevin Steele because of what he'd done there. He certainly knows the SEC. He's recruited well, but then there were some people who didn't want Kevin Steele because they saw that as being, well, the same guard is going to push him in. They're going to have too much power. Whether that's fair or not, that's sort of going to be the perception. I do think Kevin Steele is a good football coach and would do a good job there because he knows that place. Hugh Freeze is another name. I hear a lot about Freeze. Freeze is a guy that's won in the SEC. He's recruited at a high level. He beat Saban. He beat Kirby Smart. He's a terrific developer of quarterback talent. But he does have the fact that he left Ole Miss on probation. Even though, you know, he was cited for failure to monitor, Bruce Pearl, who's come in there and just been a godsend for Auburn, was fired for unethical conduct. And I think at some point, I bring that up, at some point, Hugh Freeze has sort of served his penalty. You know, he's had nothing else since he left. If he's the guy that Auburn or Tennessee or LSU, whoever wants, then he ought to be able to come back to the SEC. I think Lane Kiffin is a guy that might factor in there. He's got a big buyout because he just got a new contract at Ole Miss. Is Mike Gundy a guy that they could talk to? I think he's been interested in a few other jobs in the last couple of years, and he's probably done as underrated a job at Oklahoma State as anybody else in college football. Are there guys with Auburn ties out there? You know, Jeff Grimes, Eli Drinkwitz was there for a while. You know, he's the Missouri head coach. So, of course, we've named about 6 guys, and you guys know how it works. None of them will end up getting the job.
Yeah.
If they do end up, you know, getting Harsin, which, you know, again, I want to reiterate, I think ultimately that seems to be what's going to happen. I mean, I just think it's become untenable to bring him back. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, who's going to make the call? How much influence will the new president have? Is this going to be Gooch's call on his way out? How much are the board of trustees, the ones that have been heavily involved, and how much influence do they have? Are they on the same board? Last time they weren't on the same board. I think had they been on the same board, then I think probably Kevin Steele would have gotten the job, and there wouldn't have been a search. But what happened is Allen Greene, they decided, you know what, we're going to go out, we're going to do our own thing. They bring in Bryan Harsin. It has not worked, although, to be fair to Bryan Harsin, he's only had 1 year. But there were questions about bringing a guy from the outside, a guy that had not recruited or coached the SEC in the Deep South, how that would fit. Well, so far it hasn't fit. Now, 3 years from now, you know, if he's allowed to stay, will we see a different result? Maybe so. I do think Bryan's a really good football coach who's had success. I don't think you get dumb overnight or get to a position overnight where you can't relate to kids. Maybe it is just coming from where he was to a different part of the country and sort of feeling your way through that. And here's the other thing I think that needs to be pointed out. Every coach, when they come into a new situation, have players leave. Go back to Nick Saban's first year in 2007 in Alabama. You have coaches leave because you're trying to bring and establish your culture and your infrastructure. Is that sort of what's happened here? Now, you don't necessarily have 20 guys in the transfer portal. You know, but when Saban came in 2007, there was no transfer portal. You know, so the game's changed. I think this is all maybe a long-winded way of saying the truth probably here, what's happened, or how this has gotten to this point, is somewhere in the middle. And now it's up to Jay Gooch and the powers that be at Auburn to figure this thing out and get it right. Because at some point, again, the great Auburn fans, they're the ones that are losing in all this.
He is Chris Lowe. Go follow him on Twitter at CLoweESPN. He's been on the forefront of reporting on this situation and will continue to do so. Chris, thank you for the time. Know you're busy. We greatly appreciate it.
You bet, guys. Take care.
All right, you too. That is Chris Lowe with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.